I gotta be a bit more productive towards society. So you know what? I'm gonna invent a machine that will help everyone. Just give me a minute to think here. Hey guys, today I'm gonna show you how to use user tracks in PFTrack 2011. To get started off, you need to find your file that you're gonna use, whether it's an image sequence or a video, and import that into PFTrack. So look through your browser folder right over here, okay? I already have mine set up here in my most recent used items. Once you find your item, you need to drag its thumbnail over into the tree viewer panel right here. Okay, now that's all set and nice and dandy. Now we got to change our frame rate to our liking. Mine is set at 30 so I can import this really easy into Maya. Now you have to click on your video thumbnail over in the tree panel, and we can either select auto track or user track. It does not matter in which order you do anything in PFTrack because it works as sort of a tree editor. Everything connects together and it really only comes colliding together with the results at the very end when you export it. So auto track, okay? Now let's just track a few things. Search mode, let's make it for better accuracy, and let's just auto track it right now. Alright, so now let's scrub through our footage to see what it looks like. Okay, pretty good. We have about 40 to 60 in total trackers. In reality, I'm not really seeing that much. I'm seeing about no idea. But the point is we have trackers. Now the next thing you have to do is after you're done scrubbing through your footage to your liking, you want to go now select your auto track node right here, right click and now select user track. Next thing you want to do is preferably make sure you're on your first frame, and I'll explain why in a minute. Next thing you want to do is you want to select this create button right here. And if you notice while selecting it, just pressing it once will activate it. And this is basically giving you the go ahead to make as many tracking points as you want. So I'm going to select anywhere on this page. It doesn't really matter that has a black marker on it. I'm going to select this one right here. Okay, pretty good. Now there is one thing we need to change, and this is very custom to your scene. We need to change the actual tracking window size or the search window. So if you notice, I have a bunch of movement around on my screen, yada yada, a whole bunch of this and that, right? And you're thinking, well, no problem for PFTrack, right? Well, there is, because if you have too much movement, your tracker can actually jump from one marker or the other, and you wouldn't even notice a single thing. So we need to make that window smaller by just holding it down. This is the hard track window, as I like to call it. So this thing will never bounce out of it unless there is absolutely no available information to track on, like if this thing was in the middle of the page that's white. This is our outer window, which gives us more of a, hey, if you don't have anything in the info in the hard track window right here, then go out and search for this. So I'm going to make that one small as well. And this one even smaller. Okay, I like that. That's pretty good. Now, like I said earlier, with the whole going back to your first frame is, we're now going to select the track forward. And this just gives us the ability to track forward without having to put any extra keyframes if you started from 80 or 100 or whatever. So all we have to do now is just track forwards by pressing this button. There you go. Check it out. And if you notice, you can alternatively press stop as the button changes, both the reverse and the track forwards button change, because if your tracker suddenly just barrel rolls out into something else, you can stop it, move it back to where it was, wherever you want to do, and then retrack it forward, like I just did right now. But you have to actually move it first in your window panel or here. Preferably here because it's easier. So there you go. That is, in actuality, a user track. I'm going to do about 11 or more of these user tracks just so you guys can see how the workflow process goes when you use user tracks. Just a little tip here. If you don't notice, there is a little window under my current group tracking window, and that is basically a magnification of our current video screen right now. This will resize itself based on how big your search window is, and I'm talking about the hard window search. So this is really important to getting the most accurate tracks, and it's pretty convenient. Now, just to clarify some things, there is two kinds of tracking points that are used in PFTrack. One is the auto track or soft track, like many other programs do, like PFTrack, Match Mover, and whatnot. And then you have the user tracks, and those are called hard tracks. Now, the main difference between these two is, well, there's 2 points. Auto tracks, you can have like 500 of them going off at once, and they're automated by the computer. User tracks, on the other hand, are manually done by yourself. The second point is how they are both valued against each other. For example, I can get a more specific and accurate tracking if I use around 60 auto tracks and 20 to 25 user tracks than I would if I had a total of 0 user tracks and 500 auto tracks, which would have taken me about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes to simulate out with its tracking. So the best way you can go about this in actuality is that you can combine about 200, 300 auto tracks to get a point cloud going here, and then use your 20 or 30 user tracks in combination with the two. That is, of course, if you don't have to undistort your footage or anything like that, but that is the best way you can do it. So there are two different kinds of tracking points: auto tracks, user tracks. The difference between them is that how they are valued. User tracks are a lot more valuable to PFTrack than auto tracks are. But in the end, the best way is to have both of them. So that's one way to look at them. Just another quick tip right here. If you notice during my tracking points, as I move around in the timeline, they'll start to get a bit jittery. Not a lot, maybe, a pixel shift of about 3 pixels, very few amounts, but it will start to get a bit jittery. And what I'll do is, if it starts to get a little bit jittery, then more than I'd like, I just stop it, move around the tracking point in our little magnifying tracking window, and then keep on with the track. And that fixes it pretty well. Another thing I like to do to combat all that jitteriness is I like to press the polish button. In actuality, what that will do is, as soon as I stop and select any point in time on the timeline and press the polish button, it will jump about 5 frames forward, 5 frames backward, and really, polish the surrounding area so it can get a lot smoother track. This is basically the lazy way of doing things if you don't want to move your tracking point, or unless it's so bad that you both have to move it and polish it at the same time. So this is just one of those things that helps it just a little bit more. Alright, so now we're all done with our auto track and the user track. We've laid down around 17 user tracks in total, which I believe is pretty much sufficient for this. And we've gone around somewhere between 40 to 60 auto tracks. So we've got a bit enough. Not really sure, who knows, but I think this is sufficient. Now let's go back to our user track and let's put in our camera solver and let's solve this. And of course, always select exhaustive, at least I like to, of course, and solve all. And if you notice, this is actually taking a lot faster. Usually I would have just cut the audio by now, but in reality, this will not take that much time at all. See, even I make mistakes. I am human after all. Just like that Daft Punk album. I'm surprised they never really made a song called Human After All. That's weird. Okay, anyways, now it's done. Now we just select our now origin. I keep saying now, sorry. And check it out. If you notice, if you snap your origins to our user tracks, which should be green, they actually snap pretty well. Like, the difference between this one, watch, right here, that is not actually that much of a distance change between our grid. So now let's go over to our camera solver and let's orient the scene. Okay, rotate this thing down. Shouldn't take that much of a while. Alright, I think that's pretty good. Now the last thing, let's just throw in some test objects. So we'll go over here and select test objects. Alright, now let's just place a whole bunch of thumbtacks around everywhere. One here. One here. One here. And don't be too surprised. The results won't be that bloody explosive in your face great. We didn't really put that much time into this, but another hour and we'll have like an amazing track, Anyways, let's just throw this one around. One more right in front of us should go here. Okay, now let's just scrub through this. Now our grid is a little bit weird. Right now we haven't really set it up well, but that's not the point. The point is the trackers look very good for where they are, except for this guy right here. He's sort of in the middle. There you go. And wow, that looks pretty flippin' accurate. Remember, the grid is not that important to set up. It's your trackers. Because really, who uses a grid anyways when they're doing 3D work? And there you go. That's how you set up user tracks, make them do the magic, and widdly whatnot. And there you go. Well, nothing else to say now, except now you guys know how to use user tracks, which are way better than auto tracks. So then I shall be seeing you later, my tutorialites, as we delve into PFTrack 2011 a little bit more. A street cleaner for bums and hobos on the street. Wouldn't that be freaking awesome? Just tearing up the street with pieces of hobos' arms, shopping carts, and old worn out beanies. One can dream.